So this picture shows the start of my story. It was no planning. It was my feeling that something was happening with my body. I got a test and I found out that I was pregnant. My first reaction was shock. I didn't really feel ready for it, which was the same feeling for my husband. But I'm really happy that we decided the way we did, and we got our first baby, because I don't think that we'll actually really feel ready. My name is Tereza Rozsypalová, and I'll tell you my birthing story, my birth experience from Prague. There are 3 stars on this picture, and each of them is for one baby, so actually I'll tell you a story of my 3 births. When you get pregnant, there are a lot of W questions. You need to find out where to go, when to say it, to whom, where to find answers to many questions that you get about this new situation, where to register what, and last but not least, also where to give birth. So I was asking women around me, I was asking my friends who actually had some experience, or my mom or stepmom, and their stories were not really satisfying. There are a lot of they were saying a lot of times that you just have to stand some behavior in hospitals, and that it depends on who you meet in the hospitals. It can be better, it can be worse, and that the most important is that you survive, and that the best moment actually happens when you get back from the hospital. So I was asking myself, isn't it better not to go to the hospital in the first place? And this brought me to the topic of home birth. In the Czech Republic, when you say home birth, it's a complete taboo. People feel that it's really risky, and you basically want to risk your own life and life of your baby. This is what people usually think, as it is still in the illegal position. So I was thinking about home birth, and that what really made me decide was the antenatal course for parents, where we went with my husband. It was organized by this almost extinct species in the Czech Republic, which is a community midwife. You don't really meet these too often. And so this was organized by one community midwife called Susanna. And we're talking about birth, about pregnancy, about what is happening after giving birth. And she was focusing quite a lot about natural birth, how important it is, and why that is actually the safest way to give birth, unless there is, of course, some pathology during pregnancy or while in labor. And so this whole day made me think about birth. It got really more real, and also the home birth got more real for me. And then this time of trying to find a midwife that will support me during home birth started. As I said, it still has an illegal position in the Czech Republic, so one feels like buying drugs or something like that. You call people and they ask you where you got their numbers, and it's like quite difficult. Especially for, I think, for younger midwives, they don't really reveal that they do home birth. So at the end, I got in contact with Susanna, the midwife from the antenatal course, and we agreed that she'll support me in the home birth. I started to go for regular checks to see her. This was basically instead of going to hospitals, because this is how it works in the Czech Republic, that you go to your gynecologist, and then 4 weeks before the due date, you change and you go to the hospital. So instead of this, I went to see Susanna, and for once I didn't feel like a number. I didn't feel like weight and blood pressure and urine, but I felt like there was a real baby in my belly. So when I was actually touching my belly, and she also made me feel where the baby's head was, which was for the first time, and I don't think I will ever forget this. And then my first birth came. It was back in 2017. We stayed home. Susanna came to be there to check me and to give me advice on like what to do and what can help. I think the first birth was really about my mind, that I wasn't really ready to let the baby go. I wasn't ready for the change, so it took quite long. And then we started to talk. After a few hours, we started to talk about going to the hospital, which made me actually had stronger contractions, and the real labor started. As Susanna was checking me regularly, she said that the heartbeat of the baby went down. So she suggested to call the ambulance just in case, it will be not really looking good. So the transport to the hospital was the shortest. By the time the ambulance came, our first son was actually just being born. So they were there to see it and to check. Their approach was very professional. They checked me and checked the baby and actually left, which I thought that was very nice, that there was no judging and no verbal attacks, how it could be and is happening in the Czech Republic. So I think that this is maybe how it works in countries where home birth is legal and it's quite normal. So our first kid was born, and 2 years later, I was again pregnant, and I was thinking about where to give birth. I had this very strong feeling that I want my older son to be there with me, which is not really possible in any hospital in the Czech Republic. So we stayed home again. This on the picture you can see a few minutes after I gave birth to our second son, how my first son is holding my hand. It was very really deep moment for, I think, all of us. Then 2 years later, again, I was pregnant, and I was thinking where to give birth. Actually, this time I didn't really feel I want to have my older kids there with me, but what I was thinking of a lot was a journey, like how long it could take to get to the hospital. I chose hospital not in Prague, so it was almost 45 minutes to get there, with a good situation on the roads. So that was one thing to consider. And also I actually went to this hospital and I was already after due date. There was quite a lot of pressure to induce the birth, which I thought was not really based on individual situation, but more based on the numbers, on the weeks of pregnancy, which I think is quite unfortunate, and I think it should be rather a discussion on individual basis. Anyhow, the contractions started again. They took few hours. They were not really strong. So I thought about how much strength I have, and if I shouldn't really go to the hospital this time. But I wanted to discuss this with my midwife. So we called Susanna again, and I think that she said she was coming, and I think this made me feel very comfortable that she was on her way. And actually, with 2 strong contractions, our third baby was born in the presence of me and my husband. So the midwife, she didn't arrive on time because it was really, really fast. But she came after. As you can see in the picture, she was there to check. And this is a picture of our oldest son, to cut the cord with her help. So my 3 experiences are all home births, and it wasn't that I have decided this from the first moment and I didn't want it otherwise. I was actually thinking about hospital for sure with the second and third birth, but I felt that that was not really an alternative for me for what I wanted, and also that it's maybe missing in my city unless you're one of the few that can register in the only birthing center in Prague. And what I think is missing in the Czech Republic is something like home-like hospital birth. So basically being in a hospital but feeling like home. You can also imagine this as a family room where you have your own room with whoever you like in this room. So that can be also your older children. And I see that you're supported by a midwife that you know from before. So from the pregnancy time, you have this trust in one another, and that also is helping with the mind setting during the birth. And also what I think is very important is that you don't have to move anywhere, you don't have to count with the journey, how long that will take, but you can be there from like very early stage on the labor. And also that you know that it can last for a very long time. You can take however long you want, because there is time, you don't have to move from one room because there's another mother giving birth and you have to make a space for her. So basically this is how I imagine it. And why actually I think that a natural birth only led by a midwife is so important. From my experience, I think it's a very empowering moment, and I don't think that childbirth is a disease. I think it's a very natural process, and I think that it should stay natural in as many cases as possible. Of course, there are pathology in pregnancy and while giving birth, and of course these had to be led differently, but I don't think that this needs to be a majority of cases, but only a minority. And I always felt that after giving birth in a natural way, that you feel that you managed, you and your baby, you knew what to do. And I think this is very strong moment that also helps in the postpartum time, which is quite difficult. And I think it helps to have this self-consciousness of like knowing what to do and feeling confident that you understand what you need to do and what your baby wants. So I wish for the Czech Republic to have more natural births and have more alternatives where to give birth. I hope that sooner or later the home birth will also get legal, because there will always be some women that want to give birth at home. But I wish that for people like me, there will be some alternatives in a way of birthing houses or birthing rooms, like the home-like birthing rooms in the hospitals. And I have my personal wish that this happens sooner than it will be relevant for my just born daughter. She's 4 weeks, so I hope that it will not take 25 to 30 years, but it will be fast. So go Czech Republic, more natural birth. Thank you very much for your attention.